Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, I think. Fairly sure. It's been a week since last Thursday, so I hope it's Thursday today. But anyway, I hope everyone's had a fairly decent week this week. I hope everyone who's also in the sweltering heat like I am has been able to find some place to at least try to stay cool. I do have a one announcement, at least. I will not be streaming tomorrow, as far as I know, on my channel. I will, however, be over on Matsu's, because we will be reading ghost stories. I'm not even sure who all is there, but I'm not sure who all is going to be reading over there, but I'll be reading over there too. Because, ghost stories are fun. Don't trust my computer to try to stream at the same time as other streams, so I will try to do the best I can. Anyway, after the last OBS update, everything seems to be working fine except for my mouth, because I keep saying things. Let me check one more thing on my end. Lots of scrolling. Because I try to keep my lip sync set up to go with my model, and I use my camera microphone for the audio for it, so if my camera can't hear me, my mouth doesn't move properly. So I guess I really could change it over to the other mic. I don't know if I'm going to do any different. I know we're doing technical stuff while I'm streaming. Such a... Oh, I could set it to my headset microphone. That'd be funny. In fact, I think I'll try that, just for the hell of it. That way, if I'm muted... Well, it seems to get it pretty well. I don't know. I'm not used to the headset, so I don't know if the button push down is muted or push... Well, my mouth isn't moving, so it doesn't matter. Okay, well... I will set it to my other microphone then. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. This is a warning. Tonight there will be songs. One you might sing along. Because tonight we'll have Home on the Range. And we'll get to go through all the verses of it. Because there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 verses. Really? There's 7 verses to Home on the Range. And of course, the course that everyone knows. So yeah, that's like the third thing we'll hit tonight. Because we got, a couple of things about Iowa, of all places. Then we have the Kinkaiders, which apparently sang a song about Maryland. Maryland, my Maryland, is the music it goes to anyway. Which I don't know that song either. So, yeah. But Iowa, and the Kinkaiders, and then a Home on the Range. Then we'll get to an actual story, I suppose. But yeah, I apologize for your tortured ears now. It'd be even more so if I tried, playing music to it. Because it's all written in treble, and I can't read treble. I'm a bass clefist. So I'm probably going to sing off key as well, because it's like the key has 3 flats. That's our B flat, top space flat, middle line flat, second space flat. I, again, don't read treble. But anyway, we're going to do this, and we're going to like it. I did switch the goal thing from followers to subs. Not that I think I'll ever reach my sub goal, but I don't think I've ever even gotten a hype train. But that's, whatever. Anyway, let's get into the book, shall we? Oops, my booklight's turning in the right direction. It was facing into the closet next to my little makeshift sound area, which I'm going to try to improve that too, because I'm getting rid of some furniture so I can give my desk a little bit more space, and then I can kind of close it in better for sound. But anyway, yeah, stories. That is why we're here. At least that's what they tell us. Okay, viewer counts turned off, follower counts turned off, subscriber and sub points all turned off. So let's see how well I can do this. Beautiful and healthful Iowa. 1. Iowa is noted for the glory and beauty of its autumns. The glorious season Iowa is noted for the glory and beauty of its autumns. That glorious season denominated Indian summer cannot be described, and in Iowa it is particularly charming. Day after day, for weeks, the sun is veiled in a hazy splendor, while the forests are tinged with the most gorgeous hues, imparting to all nature something of the enchantments of fairyland. Almost imperceptibly, these golden days merge into winter, which holds its stern reign without a disagreement changes experience in other climes, until spring ushers in another season of life and beauty. And so the seasons pass year after year in our beautiful and healthful Iowa. Brought to you by the Iowa Travel Channel. 2. Our climate is one of the most delightful in nature. Our springs usually commences in March, and by the middle of April the prairies are green and mild with beautiful weather. In May, whole the face of nature is covered with flowers, and the foliage of the prairies bends before the breeze like the waves of an enchanted lake, whilst the whole atmosphere is scented by the breath of flowers. At all seasons of the year, gentle breezes fanning the prairies, and the day is never so sultry, but that a cooling breath comes to moderate the melting temperature. That one's actually from the Iowa Handbook. The first one I was joking about, but it's from Iowa, the home for immigrants. So they're advertising for immigrants in Iowa. Not shooting them! Anyway, continuing. I should put the book up a little bit more. So at least look like I'm looking at the camera. The Kinkaiders. To the air of Maryland, my Maryland. You ask what place I like the best, the sand hills, oh the sand hills. The place Kinkaiders make their home, and prairie chickens freely roam. In all Nebraska's wide domain, 'tis a place we long to see again. The sand hills are the very best, she is the queen of all the rest. The corn we raise is our delight, the melons too are out of sight. Potatoes grown are extra fine, and can't be beat in any clime. In Nebraska's wide domain, 'tis a place we long to see again. The sand hills are the very best, she's the queen of all the rest. The peaceful cows and pastures dream, and furnish us with golden cream. So I shall keep my Kinkaid home, and never far away shall roam. Then let us all with heart sincere thank him who has brought us here, and for the homestead law he made, this noble Moses P. Kinkaid. Yep, that was advertising. Oh, I love the fact that here. The phrase out of sight in the late 1880s was slang indicating excellence or superfine quality. Okay, Moses P. Kinkaid, congressman of the 6th District in 1903 to 1919, introduced a bill for 640-acre homesteads and was hailed as a benefactor of the Sandhill region, which explains the lyrics of the song. And now I'm sure the one we've all been waiting for, except me. From cowboy songs and other frontier ballads, collected by John A. Lomax and Alan Lomax. A Home on the Range. Feel free to sing along. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Where the air is so pure, the zephyr so free, the breeze is so balmy and light, that I would not exchange my home on the range for all the city so bright. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. The red man was pressed from this part of the west, he's likely no more to return to the banks of Red River, where seldom, if ever, their flickering campfires burn. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. How often at night, when the heavens are bright with the light of the glittering stars, have I stood here amazed and asked as I gazed if their glory exceeds that of ours. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom are heard a discouraging word, and the clouds are not. Of course I would screw up there. And the skies are not cloudy all day. Oh, I love these wildflowers in this dear land of ours, the curlew I love to hear scream. And I love the white rocks and the antelope flocks that graze on the mountain tops green. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Oh, give me a land where the bright diamond sand flows leisurely down the stream, where the graceful white swan goes gliding along like a maid in a heavenly dream. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Then I would not exchange my home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the clouds. I screwed up again. And the skies are not cloudy all day. Anyway, hi, Guilty. So that was the entire song of A Home on the Range. And sadly, the second song I've had to sing tonight. In less than 20 minutes. Yes, I will be over in Matsu's channel reading ghost stories with him tomorrow night, so I won't have fairy tales. But I'll be over there doing scary tales, so I guess that qualifies. Oh. Trying not to hiccup. And I'm kind of thinking about writing a parody song. Because I was thinking, Bob Seger has a really nice song that kind of could be easily translated over my stream. So, anyway, our next one's actually part of a story. So, Hawley's Yarn. Emboldened by his success, Hawley proceeded to relate that there was, in that same section, an area of 20 miles where the air was so pure that people never died, unless by accident. Never died! Exclaimed several of his hearers in astonishment. No, gentlemen, it is quite possible. The rare purity of the atmosphere prevented it. When persons got too old to be useful, they would sometimes be blown away, and once outside the sharp circle, they were lost. Is that really possible? Asked one of his hearers in some doubt. A fact upon my honor, rejoined old Harley. Indeed, some years ago, several philanthropic gentlemen erected a museum at that place where persons who became too old for usefulness were put into sacks, labeled, and registered at office, and hung up. If any subsequent period of their friends wished to converse with them, for a fee of 50 cents, the old friend would be taken down and placed in a kettle of tepid water, and soon be enabled to hold a conversation for half an hour, when he would be taken out, wiped off, and hung up again. That seems incredible, remarked one of the listeners. Of course it does, replied Harley. It is nevertheless true. Why, gentlemen, he continued, on one occasion I went to the museum and asked if they had a subject there named Samuel Hawley. I had an uncle by that name who went to the Rocky Mountains 30 years before, and we had not heard from him in a long time. The clerk, having examined the register, replied that Samuel Hawley was in sack number 367, and had been there for 19 years. I paid a fee and called for an interview. The contents of that particular sack were placed in warm water, and in a short time I proceeded to inform my old uncle who I was. He seemed pleased to see me, although I was a child when he left our part of the country. He inquired about my father and other friends. His voice was very weak, and after a conversation of 20 minutes, he said his breath was failing him, and if I had nothing more to say, he would like to be hung up again. I remarked that I believed he formerly owned a large gun, and asked him where it was. He informed me that it was lying on the crossbeam of my father's garret and that I was welcome to it. I thanked him and bid him goodbye. The keeper of the museum took him in my hand and soon placed him in his proper locality. If any of you should ever go that way, gentlemen, I hope you will call on my uncle and present him my compliments. Remember, his number is 367. 67? Yay, Guilty got first. So apparently Hawley was someone who knew P.T. Barnum, so yeah. Oh, he actually performed him. He's prematurely gray in his appearance of venerable gentleman of 70. Purchased one half of my exhibition. Wow. Okay, so Hawley was a barker. We do a lot of barking on this channel, I think. Anyway, our next one. The first California booster story. The wear and tear of this covered wagon life on the plains discourages many, although, who can doubt it, we are journeying to a land unexcelled in all the world, except if there isn't a single nugget of gold within its boundary lines. This is illustrated by the yarn of a man who lived in California until he had reached an interesting age of 250 years. In most countries, a man that old would be pretty feeble and decrepit, but not in California. Oh, no. In fact, he was the exhilarating, life-giving, and youth-preserving qualities of the climate that our hero at 250 was in perfect enjoyment of his health and every faculty of mind and body. But he had become tired of life. The perpetual responsibility of managing a large fortune made him long for a new state of existence, unencumbered with the world's cares, passions, and strifes. Yet, notwithstanding his desire, for which he daily and hourly prayed his Maker, health and vigor, typical of residents of California, clung persistently on him. He could not shake it off. At times he contemplated suicide, but his holy padres, to whom he confessed his thoughts, admonished him that it was damnation. Being a devout Christian, he would not disobey their injunction. A lay friend, however, no doubt the heir to his estate, with whom he daily consulted on the subject, at last advised him to a course which he thought would produce the desired result. It was to make his will and then travel to a foreign country. This suggestion was pleasing to our California patriarch in search of death, and he immediately adopted it. He visited a foreign land, and very soon, in accordance with his plan and wishes, he fell sick and died. In his last will and testament, however, he required his heir and executor, upon pain of disinheritance, to transport his remains to his own beloved country and there entomb him. This requisition was faithfully complied with. The body was interred with much becamped pomp and ceremony as in California. The prayers were duly rehearsed in all the churches for the rest of his soul. He was happy, it was supposed, in heaven, where for a long series of years he had prayed to be, and his heir was happy that he was there. But who can safely mock Providence? Being brought back and interred in California soil, with the health-breathing, youth-preserving California zephyrs rushing over his grave, the energies of life were immediately restored to his inanimate corpse. Herculean strength was imparted to his frame, and bursting the prison walls of death, he appeared before his chapfallen heir investor with all the vigor and beauty of early manhood. He submitted to his fate in the Christian resignation and determined bravely to live his appointed time. Woo, bits! What is the V Doggy Gummy Bounce? And why did the alert not play? Interesting. Annoying, but interesting. Thank you for the 100 bits. Honestly, I can't remember what I had programmed to play when bits were actually done. I thought I had a sound alert set up for it. Guess not. That sucks. At least Kel got it. Moved to California, live forever, which explains celebrities, I guess. They never seem to get old in California. I mean, Mel Brooks is 100. And he doesn't look that old. So California's doing something. Let's see, what else would I hear? The abundant and luxuriant produce of the West. Pure air, sweet water, healthy climate, mark that, fellow traveler, fertile and easy cultivation of the prairies, extensive and self-sown wheat fields, and what was wonderful indeed, always free and accessible to innumerable droves of well-fatted wild hogs, ripe for slaughter, and so exceedingly kind and accommodating to Maine emigrants as to approach their barnyards once a week, not to be fed, but to be butchered. Indeed, there was nothing of that country's produce which the squire did not most extravagantly boast. The fever and ague accepted, which, yeah, about which he was mum as a toadfish. Although the whole country was abounding therein, and had 7/8 been barreled and exported to other parts of the world, there would have remained enough in the conscience to have set half New England into the shivers. Okay. The Elephant. 1. Among thousands of returning immigrants, we passed one jovial party with a huge charcoal sketch of an elephant upon their wagon labeled, "What We Saw at Pike's Peak." There's a rock oven chat. Should anyone with the doggo? Two. Here we begin to meet people who are turning back discouraged. They had seen enough of the elephant. No one seems to be able to explain that expression, which is the commonest heard on the California Trail. "I suppose," said Meek, "that it comes from circus talk. Like if you went to the circus folks and asked, 'Well, did you see the elephant?' Meaning in general, did you go to where you set out for? Did you see what you want to see? Did you see the thing you started on enough through the thread?" As applied to our case, it means undergoing the hardships and privations of the California trip and getting there. You hear the phrase used variously as the quitters that are headed back for independence as, "They've seen too much of the elephant," or "the elephant's tracks got too close." In rare instances, the continent is referred to as elephant, and the continent provide ahead of us, South Pass, as the top of the elephant's back. I had never heard of that before. Never thought of the continent as the elephant. I have to. Yeah, cut the rock rough. Next one. Busted. 1. Pike's Peak or Bust. Among the most significant mottos we have seen upon any of the wagons going out to the mines upon was written in the Illinoisian about 3 weeks ago, inscribed in flowing letters of red chalk, though not in the most approved style of art, "Pike's Peak or Bust." The indefatigable and energetic sucker returned the other day upon a gaunt and starving mule, and looked as though he had climbed the peak. He was asked why he didn't go through. "Well," he said, "we got clean on beyond Kearney, and he busted. So he just rubbed out Pike's beaker bust and turned back. 2. Wagon Inscriptions, Emphatic. We have been somewhat amused in noticing the inscriptions and devices on wagon covers of the Pikes Peak immigrants. One went on through a day or two since with a large elephant painted over the whole cover. Another had a rude attempt at a pike with a pyramid to represent the peak. But the most unequivocal inscription yet we noticed on the wagon cover was a returned immigrant on Saturday. It reads, "Oh yes, Pikes Peak in H1 and deep." I'm just going to say, "Oh yes, Pikes Peak in hell and damnation." We think the man owning that wagon must be of the opinion that he has been badly humbugged, and thus he emphatically expressed himself. Oh yes, Pikes Peak and hell and damnation. We went from busted to disgusted. Disgusted. The legend Pike's Peak or Bust began to appear on the wagon covers. Others had "Ho for the Gold Fields of Kansas" painted on them. Still others the names of places from which they hailed, or the owners' names, or sometimes even a verse of scripture. I noticed that the men who meant business mostly had no time for science, and that the more romantic a man was being more painted at his wagon cover. It wasn't long before we began to see the word "busted" scrawled under Pike's Peak or Bust legend, and then the rush got as thick as coming as going. D.C. Oaks came east to get a sawmill outfit and was almost lynched going back again when a group of busted boomers who had read his book discovered its identity. Again, we came across that legend, Pike's Peak or Bust, this time with "Busted by Thunder." It was said that some of the returning pilgrims were so passionately exercised that they dug Major Oaks's grave every time they camped. Damn. People were pissed off at the guy who was promoting traveling that they wanted him dead. Timid but wise. In times of adversity, the faint-hearted forsake the country. Even after a few weeks of drought, many timid ones desert their farms. Some remain only a year, and others give them up entirely or sell them for a small amount to some sharp speculator. Consternation seizes the settlers in these districts when all the real condition draws upon them, and they begin at once to fix up a prairie schooner preparatory to going east to make the protracted visit among their relations. One covered wagon had written on it, "God we trusted, and Kansas we busted." It was in all probability the same fellow returning the next year who wrote, "We fled Kansas sun and dust, and then Missouri's mud stuck fast." One man, who had left Kansas several times while returning in his last time, silenced any who might question or ridicule by posting these words: "Wise men change their minds, fools never." Twitch, clip that. Just oops. Okay, I kind of like that one. Wise men change their minds, fools never. That is a very good philosophy. It's strange to see that painted on a wagon. But hey, smart people are smart. Doesn't matter when they are. I got busted. Many carried slogans painted on the side of wagon covers. The most popular was "Oklahoma or Bust." Frequently on the opposite side were in the words, "In God We Trust." The old saying was "Oklahoma or Bust," but when I got to Oklahoma, I got busted. A grasshopper was seen. When the hoppers was thick as and the air was full of them, and the ground literally covered with them, Mr. Hoisington, then editor of the Register, greatly amused the people by placing his unique sentence at the head of the leading newspaper column. A grasshopper was seen at the courthouse steps. This patient man brushed the pests out of his eyes and off his nose, and for the true Kansas grit, the editorial dignity absolutely ignored their presence so far as any further remarks were concerned in that copy of the paper. So, the editor posted an understatement. Humor. Good. A grasshopper was seen on the courthouse steps. Oh, here we go. Hell on earth. You see them heat waves out there on the prairie. Them's the fires of hell looking round your feet, burning your face as red as raw meat, drying up your crops, drawing the water out of your wells. You see them thunderheads shining like mansions in the sky, but squirting fire and shaking the ground under your feet. God is mad. Mad as hell. Kind of like that one, too. Oklahoma rain. It was reported that the dust had been found in the vault at the bank, that the banana crate used as a wastepaper basket by the local editor was full and running over with dust. One man claimed that gravel had come through his window pane and wakened him during the night. Another, finding his car stalled by the grit in his engine, opened the door and shot ground squirrels overhead, which were tunneling upward in the air. A local newspaper reported finding gold nuggets in the street, which had been blown from the mines of New Mexico. The county farm agent advised his clients that if it would be unnecessary to rotate crops in the future, since the wind was rotating soils. For one of the natives proposed a test for wind velocity. Fasten one end of a log chain to the top of the fence post. If the wind does not blow the chain straight out of the post, the breeze is moderate. You have a calm day. Allergy in its various forms became so common that, it is said, even the snakes had learned to sneeze. And the night you could tell when a duster was coming by the sneezing of the rattlesnakes on the prairie. Everyone jestingly referred to the dust storm as Oklahoma rain. A man caught some huge bullfrogs, so he said, and then put them up in the water tank to multiply, but he said the poor things all drowned immediately. It hadn't rained for so long that they had never had the chance to learn how to swim. The housewife claimed that she'd scoured her pans by holding them up in a keyhole. The sand coming in through the steam polished them better than she could by the usual method. One old lady, on hearing a man compare the climate to that of hell, put her chin up and declared that if the good Lord sent her to hell, he'd have give her the constitution to stand it. They laughed about a black snow which covered their fields. One farmer said he was going to leave Texas and move to Kansas to pay taxes. That's where my farm is now. Another said that he could not keep up with his farm, which had taken a trip north. But next week she'll be back, he said. I can plow then. One leather-faced, dry farmer said, I hope it'll rain before the kids grow up. They ain't never seen one anymore. Those who left the plains generally did so unwillingly, and in the midst of the disaster, with a joke on their lips. Well, the wind blew the dirt away, but we haven't lost anything. We still got the mortgage. So, when was that written? Short rest country. Yeah. So the real reason for the sand bowl, well, the dust bowl, was from over farming in Oklahoma primarily, where we got a lot of flat land and a lot of wind. Well, when you have flat, dry ground that's freshly tilled, it tends to blow around. Crap, another song. Oh, 2 more songs. Well, this will be lovely. Dakota Land, an air after Baloo Land. We've reached the land of deserts sweet, where nothing grows for man to eat. The wind it blows with feverish heat across the plains so hard to beat. Oh, Dakota Land, sweet Dakota Land, As on the furry soil we stand, I look across the plains and wonder why it never rains. Till Gabriel blows his trumpet sound and says the rain's just gone around. We've reached the land of hills and stone, where all is strewn with buffalo bones. Oh, buffalo bones, bleached buffalo bones, I seem to hear your sighs and moans. We have no wheat, we have no oats, we have no corn to feed our shoats. Our chickens are so very poor, they beg for crumbs outside our door. Our horses are a bronco race, starvation stares them in the face. We do not live, we only stay, we are too poor to get away. Good Lord, how many songs do I have here? I've just got a series of songs now. The Lane County Bachelor. My name is Frank Bowler, no bachelor am I. I went straight up. My name is Frank Bowler, no bachelor I am. I'm keeping old Bath with an elegant plan. You'll find me out west in the country lane, starving to death on a government claim. My house is built on the national soil, the walls are erected according to Hoyle. The roof has no pitch, but is level and plain, and I always get wet when it happens to rain. But hurrah for Lane Country, the land of the free, the home of the grasshopper, bedbug, and the flea. I sing loud of her praises and boast of her fame, while starving to death with my government claim. Thank you for more bits. My clothes are ragged, my language is rough, my head is hard, my head is case hardened, both solid and tough. The dough is scattered all over the room, and the floor would get scared at the sight of a broom. My dishes are dirty and some in the bed, covered with sorghum and government bread, but I have a good time and live in my ease, with common soft garum and bacon, old bacon and grease. But hurrah for Lane Country, the land of the West, where the farmers and laborers are always at rest. When you've nothing to do but sweetly remain, and starve like a man on your government claim. How happy I am when I crawl into bed, and a rattlesnake rattles his tail in my head, and the gay little centipede, void all of fear, crawls over my pillow and into my ear. And the nice little bedbug, so cheerful and bright, keeps me a scratching full half of the night. And the gay little flea with sharp toes as a tack plays, "Why don't you catch me?" all over my back. But hurrah for Lane Country, where blizzards arise, where the winds never cease and the flea never dies, while the sun is so hot, and if you remain, 'twill burn you quite black on your government claim. How happy I am on my government claim, where I've nothing to lose and nothing to gain, nothing to eat, nothing to wear, nothing from nothing is honest and square. But here I am stuck, and here I must stay. My money's all gone, and I can't get away. There's nothing will make a man hard and profane, like starving to death on a government claim. Then come to Lane County, there's room for you all, where the winds never cease and the rains never fall. Come into the chorus and boast of our fame, while starving to death on your government claim. Now don't get discouraged, ye poor hungry men, we're all here as free as a pig in a pen. Just stick to your homestead and battle your fleas, and pray to your maker to send you a breeze. Now a word to claim holders who are bound to stay. You may chew your hardtack till you're toothless and gray. But as for me, I'll no longer remain. I'll starve like a dog on my government claim. Farewell to Lane County, farewell to the West. I'll travel back east to the girl who I love best. I'll stop in Missouri and get me a wife and live on corn doggers the rest of my life. Hey, Matsu. Welcome in. Congrats on getting second. I have done 3 or 4 songs so far tonight, including the entirety of A Home on the Range. Did you realize it had 7 verses? I'm definitely going to have to go back and edit the song out. But yeah. If the music wasn't now written in treble, I'd probably try playing it too. But I have trouble with that clef. Oh, yay, another song. Okay, this one is the state of Arkansas. Let me get the rhythm down. At least I can read that in the music. My name is Sanford Barney, and I come from Little Rock Town. I traveled with the wide world over, and I traveled to a little while. Yeah, I'll just speed up. I've traveled this a wide world over. I've traveled this a wild world round. I've had many ups and downs through life, and better days I've saw. But I never knew what misery was until I came to Arkansas. 'Twas in the year of '82, in the merry month of June. I landed at Hot Springs one sultry afternoon. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorely out of practice reading music. 'Twas in the year of '82, in the merry month of June. I landed at Hot Springs one sultry afternoon. There came a walking skeleton, and gave me his paw. Invited me to his hotel. 'Twas the best in Arkansas. I followed my conductor to his dwelling place, and the starvation and poverty pictured on his face. His bread was corn doggers, his beef I could not chew. He charged me $50, 50 cents for a meal. Yeah, I'm not doing very good on this one. I followed my conductor into his dwelling place. I was starvation and poverty pictured on his face. His bread was corn doggers, and his beef I could not chew. He charged me 50 cents for a meal in the state of Arkansas. I started back next morning to catch the early train. He said, "Young man, you better work for me, and I have some land to drain. I'll give you 50 cents a day, your washing and your chaw. You'll feel quite like a different man when you leave old Arkansas." I worked for the gentleman 3 weeks. Just Harold was his name. 6 feet 7 inches in his stocking length, and slim with any pain. His hair hung down like ringlets behind his slackened jaw. There's a polygraph for all the gents I was raised in Arkansas. His bread it was corn dodgers as hard as any rock. It made my teeth begin to loosen, my knees began to knock. I got so thin on sage and sassafras, 10 I could hide behind a straw. I'm sure I was quite like a different man when I left old Arkansas. I started back to Texas at 5:15. Nothing was left but skin and bones, half dead and half alive. I got me a bottle of whiskey, my misery for it to thaw. Got drunk in old Abraham Lincoln when I left old Arkansas. Farewell, farewell, Jess Harold, and likewise daring wife. I know she never will forget me for the last days of her life. She put her little hand in mine and tried to bite my jaw, and said, "Mr. Barnes, remember when you leave me in Arkansas." Farewell, farewell, swamp angels, to canebrake and to chills. Farewell to these sage and sassafras tea and corn dogger pills. If I ever see that land again, I'll give you to my pa. It will be through the telescope from here to Arkansas. Okay. That was definitely interesting. I guess we get to change subjects after this one. We've had so many songs. One of these is just a list of mines in California. Oh. Coming up on a break. So I get to take a break from singing. And I'm going to go ahead and run the break early so we can get back into local cracks and slams. When we get to learn some interesting vocabulary. See you in a bit. I'm gonna guess we're back. Because it does say that the pre-roll was at 57, so that means at least something's gone by. But yeah. Thank you all for hanging around. I hope you got something done during the break. I haven't switched water bottles yet, so I'm doing good. Let's see, what was that section considered? That was all talking about people coming back, so I don't even know what the title of that section. Oh. It was mostly people who did not succeed in the West. And now we get to learn some local language. So the next section is 3. Local cracks and slams. Oh, look at the quote. Webster's Collegiate Dictionary. Crack, slang, a jibing retort, a quip. Slam, colloquialism, a violent criticism. Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, 5th edition, 1936. From time immemorial, pointing sarcasm and humor at localities has been recognized as an element in human nature and its literature. Samuel S. Cox. So we know what we're getting into. I'll just go ahead and put a language warning now. 1. Names and nicknames. In all times and places, popular tradition embraces terms, phrases, sayings, allusions, rhymes, songs, and jokes that poke fun of a particular locality or group. In American geographical and cultural diversity intensifies rather than modifies the spirit of clannishness, provincialism, and rivalry, which moderates local jibes. Minority and sectional conflicts with mobility of the Minority and sectional conflicts and the mobility of the population are contributing factors. The restlessness of travel and the internal migration makes local differences stand out in sharp relief and heightens the power of observation and the sense of incongruousness. Corresponding to local color in fiction, the humor of local characters and customs is an integral part of our folklore. Which is actually true about any folklore. Because I notice that most folklore is localized. Anyway. From another point of view, local taunts and insults are inspired by reaction against the excessive optimism and confidence of boasting in reaction against the excessive optimism. From another point of view, local taunts and insults are inspired by reaction against the excessive optimism and confidence of boasting and boosting. This boosting in reverse has already been noted in mock brags and orations, inverse brags, and laughing it off. Mockery and skepticism also break out in open scoffs and jeers, pricking the inflated self-opinion of places. Exaggeration is a weapon as well as an object of attack. Hey, Cubine. The thrusts and shots of deflating sarcasm are also related to the national habit of knocking and fault-finding. The fact that knocking is as much at home in America as boosting may be attributed to the seesaw of American life, with its ups and downs of feasts and famines, booms and busts, always up in the clouds or down in the dumps. More than the opposite of boasting, however, knocking is a spirit of social criticism and protest at work of the inequalities and contradictions of individual competitive aggressiveness. When accompanied by wit and humor, knocking is relieved of rancor, and in the guise of panning or razzing becomes not only good fun, but an effective form of debunking. In a matter of name-calling, nicknames go even further and call a spade a shovel. Slang names of the states and their inhabitants, popular during the last century, were mostly uncomplimentary. One of the harshest of these is puke for Missourian. Early Californians christened the Pukes the immigrants from Minnesota, declaring that they had been vomited forth from that prolific state. Collections of these sportive and sliding sibiquets illustrate not only local pride and prejudice, but also the fondness of intensive and extravagant epithets, noted by Bartlett in the perennial rashness and Protestantism in speech which Whitman identifies with slang. A simple form of local witticism is nomenclature. Out of a realistic sense of humor and the apt phrase, frontier communities assumed disreputable, hard-sounding names, with a rough and ready appropriateness and facetious raciness. Bret Hart has capitalized and popularized such places as Roaring Camp, Poker Flat, Red Gulch, One Horse Gulch, and Rough and Ready. And these hearty, improvised names, born out of a moment's humor, good or bad, the American expressed the same irrelevance and impudence of the barbaric yawp of tall talk and boasting. The appetite of the people in these states, wrote Whitman in an American primer, is for the unhemmed latitude, coarseness, directness, live epithets, explicatives, and words of opprobrium, resistance. Words of names and places are words of strong, copious, unruly, and in the repertoire of the American pens and tongues. Such names, far from being confined to the West, had been anticipated in the East, where they have entered into mountain speech and thence into mountain fiction. John Fox Jr.'s readers are familiar with the grotesque and whimsical sound of the native salt and the savor of hell for certain, cut shin, frying pan, kingdom come, troublesome, and lonesome. We're going to get a lot of slang in this section. 2. Poor country. The common butt of ridicule is poor country, whose lack of fertility and productiveness has given rise to almost as many jests as rich land has to brags. In the East, especially the Southeast, poor country is apt to be exhausted and impoverished land, eroded and inefficiently farmed. The typical poor country of the West is dry country. In the geography books of the last century, the great American desert extended as far east as the Mississippi Valley, but as more and more of the land was put under cultivation from grazing, the desert was pushed farther and farther west. Recently, as a result of overgrazing and plowing under the grassland, desert, this time man-made, has moved east again in what, since dust storms of May 1933, has become known as the Dust Bowl. At their best, however, the Great Plains are semi-arid and subhumid. The formula has been stated that Walter Scott Webb, east of the Mississippi, civilization stood on 3 legs: land, water, and timber. West of the Mississippi, not one but 2 of these legs were withdrawn: water and timber, and civilization was left on 1 leg: land. This land, where you can see further and see less than anywhere else on Earth, between Amarillo and the North Pole, there's nothing to stop the wind but a barbed wire fence. Twitch, click that. Someone click it. That's a good line. And thank you for the bits, Guilty. You can see farther and see less than anywhere else on Earth, and between Amarillo and the North Pole, there's nothing to stop the wind but a barbed wire fence. Many jests and sayings speak of too much wind and too little water. Although applicable to the diffused over the entire plain area, dry country jests become attached to individual states. Thus, in genial Hymn of Hate, describing the hell of the arid Southwest, is known variously as Hell in Texas, the birth of New Mexico, and Arizona. A similar Dakota Land, Kansas Land, and Nebraska Land, cited above, are essentially the same song about another land of little rain, In other cases, a song, in spite of many parallels, is more or less definitely associated with a single state. This is true of In Kansas, whose prototype is Over There, and which is akin to the songs like The Cows Fly High and The Eagles They Fly High. And the hill country of New England and south of related type of local jest has grown up around the humors of a hillside cultivation. Nothing between Amarillo and the North Pole to stop the wind but barbed wire fence. I really like that. Three. Who would sooner be funny than accurate? According to the author of The Truth About Arkansas, 1895, probably about no other state are there so many misconceptions and so many inaccurate ideas about Arkansas. For this, we may credit the class of writers who would sooner be funny than accurate. The chronicler of the wanderings of that noted personage, the Arkansas Traveler, for example, may be said to have cost the state millions of dollars. In spite of all the state has suffered at the hands of traducers and thoughtless writers, it is undergoing a wonderful development. A form of criticism or propaganda, local satire may be a power for good as well as for evil. Beyond its uses for mere entertainment, in the hands of journalists and politicians, the humorous treatment of localities has had a serious purpose. Its range of possibilities is indicated by two widely differing examples, the Salem Sun and Duluth. In the former, the local sage and wit assumes the mask of naivete and the wrestling drawing accents of the crackerbox philosopher. In the latter, a leading congressional humorist summons all the resources of polished wit, learning, and eloquence in an elaborate burlesque of facetious as well as devastating. Both have their springs in the native humor and local illusion of popular jest. In what is perhaps the most humorous speech ever delivered in Congress, Duluth, by J. Proctor Knott of Kentucky, which proved to be a boomerang, the author unwittingly turned out to be a booster in the guise of a knocker. The reason for his curiously mistaken notion, based on the ignorance of Minnesota geography and history, that Duluth, rather than its rival Superior, would profit from the proposed St. Croix and Bayfield Railroad grants. During the full force of his ridicule in Duluth, he caused the defeat of the bill, which was precisely what Duluth wanted. As an unexpected result of the speech, however, Duluth was flooded with inquiries concerning the location and price of lots. A grateful real estate dealer sent Knott very handsome photographs of the city and an invitation to accept his hospitality, which he did in 1890. The speech was reprinted to accept its hospitality. The speech was reprinted by local boosters, and in 1895 the village of Proctor Knott, which is now part of Duluth, was named for him. Thus, not only the speech itself, which is mined out at the level of boasting and knocking, but the ironic sequel, which was a good joke on Knott, constitutes an amusing chapter in the American history of humor. No, in the history of American humor and floating literature. Man, I stumbled through that a lot. I'm making jokes about a city ended up causing benefit to the city. Proceeding on the theory that every knock's a boost, Dick Wickhall, 1877 to 1926, of Salem, rhymes with home, Arizona, population 100, put the town and himself on the map by playing the role of Salem's best friend and severest critic. Homesteading, ranching, and mining had given him an intimate knowledge of the region. As postmaster, garage owner, and editor and publisher of the one-man single-sheet mimeograph newspaper, the Salem Sun, issued monthly beginning January 1921, he combed civic responsibility and business with literature. His puns, whoppers, wisecracks, often in rhymed prose, are in the Bigville Bugle tradition of the comic country newspaper. This frog who had never learned to swim is straight out of American folklore, and his small town stuff, overtly good fun, covertly agitation for improved roads, sum up a whole phrase of American life and humor, best described by the sign on his laughing gas filling station. Smile, you don't have to stay here, but we do. The classic of American humorous folklore is The Arkansas Traveler, 1840. Local in origin and illusion, it belongs to the older and larger tradition of the saucy, riddling dialogue and cross questions and crooked answers between a traveler and a crotchety innkeeper. The wit and humor of the dialogue are largely elementary, a mixture of puns, paradoxes, insults, involving misunderstanding, the matching of wits, and the naivete of the rustic, the discomfiture of the stranger, and the solacence of dialect. In style, it is characterized by the humor of understatement, more typically identified with Yankee laconic wit or reluctant eloquence, as opposed to the expansive eloquence of the backwoods. Here, the grudging response of the squatter is associated with the stubborn cantankerousness of the native, due in part to suspicion and dislike of strangers, which in the Crockett Almanacs inspired pugilistic encounters, including those of purely verbal order, and in part of the low standard of living of the unfit of the frontier, with the shiftless wantonness and attendant ills of malaria, hookworm, and pilgrim. Certainly the piece, for all its broadness, is far from a caricature, and the spoofing of the well-groomed traveler on his milk-white horse, as pictured in the famous painting of the same name by Edward Payson Washburn, 1858, derives an added social interest and significance from the realism, as well as an extra satirical fillip from the outwitting of the local socially superior by the socially inferior. The Arkansas Traveler has other backwoods connotations. The love of the music that unites the traveler and the squatter when the former supplies the turn of the tune, also pictured by Washburn in the companion painting of that name, is reflected in the popularity of the fiddle as a socializing agent following the frontier. Again, the character of the squatter may be a reflection of the dislike and contempt in which the yeomanry has felt for the poor white, as signified in such derogatory nicknames as poor white trash, no account po-buckra, peckerwood, mean whites, low-downers, sandhillers, piney wood tackies, hillbillies, dirt eaters, and clay eaters. Something, too, of the conservative distrust of the pioneer and the coonskin democracy enters with the treatment of backwoods hospitality, which is here taken off as somewhat less spontaneous and generous as the usually represented in backwoods sketches and travel accounts. Now we got a list of white insults. That's cool. All of them still are heard today. Well, most of them. Not sure what a no-count pabuktra is. The dialogue is not only a piece of folk humor, it is also a popular entertainment. Essentially a folk drama, it is known to have been acted out by the Wagoneers in at least one tavern barroom at Salem, Ohio, and has inspired a play, Kit, the Arkansas Traveler, besides being used in plays like Paul Green's Saturday Night for folklore color. As a recitation with or without music, it is circulated in songbooks and joke books, to many of which it has been given its name. The tune itself, first printed in 1847, rivals Turkey in the Straw, Zipcoon, as the liveliest and most popular of American fiddle tunes. Apart from its local color interests, the Arkansas Traveler remains one of the most American folklore themes, and both the symbolism, that is, the backwoods, defined as a state of society where rusticity reigns supreme, and its form, that of a question and answer framed dialogue which has attracted to itself a number of typically rural jokes. No less vigorous, if more scurrilous, is that the other Arkansas classic, Change the Name of Arkansas? Hell no, a mythical speech which takes off the fulminating rhetoric of backward legislatures. Though the unprintable version smacks more than the smoking car in the halls of state, it represents the less seemingly side of tall talk, which in another version has been cleaned up with the aid of passages lifted from the raftsman talk in Mark Twain's Life on the Mississippi. In the role of inquiring traveler, American humorists have developed a type of humorous travelogue, which has been made popular by joke books and has served as a vehicle for monologists and lecturers.
Its origin may be traced, on the one hand, to serious and imagery travel literature, and on the other, to the humorous travel and local color sketch of the almanac variety. It has developed mainly in two directions: the comic account of scrapes and scapes, represented by the book of the adventures of Bigfoot Wallace, and the satiric commentary of local manners. Various literary comedians, Will Tappan Thompson, Major Jones, Bill Nye, Artemus Ward, and Mark Twain have worked this vein in local humor in one form or another. On the popular or quasi-folk level, it is almost pure vaudeville. Rapid fire, surefire stuff, interspersing wisecracks with gags and puns. Thomas W. Jackson's On a Slow Train Through Arkansas, 1903, has had many imitators, including a dozen or so joke books on the same pattern of Jackson himself. On a more sophisticated level, it has produced hick baiting and Babbitt baiting Americana and the American Mercury type. The inquiring traveler with his jibes at local fads, freaks, and follies is one of the many incarnations of the crackerbox philosopher, providing material for a comic society of the United States of America. Oh, America really likes its sarcasm. That, makes a lot of sense. That is interesting, though. I may have to look up the Arkansas Traveler. Let's see. It came up no problem. The Arkansas Traveler is a legendary folk tale song and cultural symbol originating in the 19th century Arkansas, centered on humor, hospitality, and the story of a traveler and his squatter. Of course, there's a song. I'm going to look it up. Let's see the tune. The sheet music to the tune was first published in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1847 as the Arkansas Traveler and Rackensack Waltz, arranged by William Cumming. No one was credited with composition. If not from the folk tradition, the tune was most likely written by Jose Tasso, a local violinist and composer who lived in Cincinnati and was locally famous for his version of the Arkansas Traveler. Several others, including Faulkner and Case, have also been credited with composition. Over the years, Arkansas Traveler has become one of the most recorded tunes in American history. Okay, well, now I'm really curious. Where is the oldest possible recording you can find? Because I'm going to play this music if I can find it. No, I don't want the history of the song. I just want the music. Heritage tunes, maybe? Okay, got one. Library of Congress collection. I like sourcing them a lot. Okay. Let me get this up here real quick. I'm just going to do it browser style. Okay. You guys can hear that, right? The music. Okay, why the music? Yeah, but this is the Arkansas Traveler.
That is hard to play.
It is.
You play it?
Which part did you mean for the shuffle?
That's right over there in that chorus part of it.
Uh-huh.
There's kind of a roll you get in there.
Yeah.
You can get it though.
No, I ain't got it yet.
Neither one of us did.
No.
Okay, let's see. That was the recording. When was that recording done? It's actually done for the American Folklore Center. Let's see, performer was Henry Reed on, let's see, Wisdom 4-4. Recorded on audio tape, so it's probably not out of copyright, but it's done for the American, well, it's, copyright played is actually from the Library of Congress, so I should be safe. Yeah, folklore music. Of course, Did you hear the... Wait. Hold on. I recognize some of the music. Right there. It's the music that goes along with I Caught a Baby Bumblebee. Huh. Okay, yeah, recognize some more music. Folklore through the ages. This next section of the book is just got a page of listing off mine names. In fact, there's a Humbug Canyon. Humbugs have been mentioned a couple of times in this book. And the only humbug I can think of is, a certain Oz Pinhead. But yeah. There's a Poltergeist in chat. I still have a book I need to send you. I have to find it again first. It's a reprint from a 19... what year was it? Yeah, I found a reprint of a 1905 book that I'm going to send you. If I ever get around to doing it. Let's see. Some of the names of mines here are interesting. Ooh, I got a rock. I got a rock. Okay, so this is going to be a list of mines in California soon. Mining localities peculiar to California: Jim Crow Canyon, Puke Ravine, Blue Belly Ravine, Happy Valley, Shanghai Hill, Gas Hill, Groundhog's Glory, Mad Canyon, Dead Man's Bar, Red Dog, Plughead Gulch, Wild Goose Flat, Hell's Delight, Shirttail Canyon, Sluice Fork, Jackass Gulch, Guano Hill, Ladies Valley, Devil's Basin, Slapjack Bar, Brandy Flat, Bogus Thunder, Skunk Gulch, Shinbone Peak, Ladies Canyon, Rattlesnake Bar, Graveyard Canyon, Deadwood, Quack Hill, Gridiron Bar, Last Chance, Snow Point, 7 Up Ravine, Miller's Defeat, Wildcat Bar, Gospel Gulch, Gougi, Paradise, Hangers Camp, Greenhorn Canyon, Nary Red, Loafer's Retreat, Loafer Hill, Dead Mule Canyon, Chicken Thief Flat, Lousy Ravine, Rough and Ready, Yankee Doodle, Humpback Slide, Hogs Diggings, Gold Hill, Hungry Camp, Rat Trap Slide, Stud Horse Canyon, Lazy Man's Canyon, Ragtown, Horsetown, Swellhead Diggings, Brandy Gulch, Pancake Ravine, Coon Hollow, Pike Hill, Bob Ridley Flat, Murderer's Bar, Sugarloaf Hill, Petticoat Slide, Whiskey Bar, Liberty Hill, Centipede Hollow, Pepperbox Flat, Port Wine, One Eye, Poor Man's Creek, Poker Flat, Chucklehead Diggings, Poverty Hill, Love Letter Camp, Nutcake Camp, Nigger Hill, Mud Springs, Pushcoach Hill, Humbug Canyon, Logtown, Mount Zion, Greaser's Camp, Coyote Hill, 7x9 Valley, 76, Skinflint, Puppy Town, Bloomer Hill, Get Up and Get, Barefoot Diggings, Christian Flat, Poodle Town, Paint Pot Hill, Piety Hill, American Hollow, Grizzly Flat, and Gopher Flat. Yes, Puke Ravine. Those are a lot of interesting mine names. Oh, now I got some interesting newspaper names. Hasty and Grotesque. Among the Far West newspapers have been, or are, the Fair Play Colorado Flame, the Solid Muldoon of Ore, the Tombstone Epitaph for Nevada, the Jimplicate of Texas, the Bazoo of Missouri, Shirt Tail Bend, Whiskey Flat, Puppy Town, Wild Yankee Ranch, Squaw Flat, Rawhide Ranch, Loafer's Ravine, Switch Gulch, Toenail Lake are a few of the names of places in Butte County, California. Perhaps indeed no place or term gives more luxuriant illustrations of the fermentation process that I've mentioned than the froth and specks in our Mississippi and Pacific Coast regions at the present day. Hasty and Grotesque, as some of the names are, others are of the more appropriateness and originally unsurpassable. Hog Eye, Lick Skillet, Rag Pocket, and Steel Easy are the names of some Texas towns. There's no doubt. Let's have Gun Barrel Lake. Slops and pairings of names. In short, Texas is one great windy lunatic, or if you please, a bundle of crooked and stupendous phrases tied together with a throng of rawhide. But in the geography that this gift gives forth its most amazing manifestations, we have all heard some of our exquisite American names, such as Last Chance, Sorrel Horse, Ratchet Ridge, Scratch Gravel, Pinchtown, Marrowbones, etc. But now read these from Texas. Lick Skillet, Buck Snort, Nip and Tuck, Jimtown, Rake Pocket, Hog Eye, Fair Play, 7 League, Steel Easy, Possum Trot, Flat Heel, Frog Level, Short Pone, Gourd Neck, Shake Rag, Poverty Slant, Black Ankle, and Gymnet. Yes, those are all towns in Texas. I think most of them are still around. Those are names of Texas towns. Nip and Tuck I've heard of before. I think I've been to Poverty Slant once. Texas has fun names for the towns. It's like you look around to see something and name the town for it. Not lovely, but honest. The classic tradition belongs to any educational program, but let it not lay hands on the rural scrolls named Greasy Neck, Mud Dig, Mud, Wayback, Big Lump, and All-Seeing Eye. Steel Easy Mountain, Towel Face Mountain, Yearling Head, Hogskin, Sodville, Peg Leg Crossing, Smuggler's Gap, Six Shooter Draw, and the creeks of Spare Rib, Toe Wash, Troublesome, Walleye, Squabble, Skin Out, and Gun Sight. So named either because the Indian shot in front sight with a gun with his teamster and throwing a bead on him, or because in the vicinity of the hill and the gap line up like sights of a gun. These may not be lovely names, but they are honest. Well, these are all stories of Texas names. They're an interesting accumulation of words, yes. Oh, got a history one now. How Louse Creek was named. Ain't you ever heard how Louse Creek got its name? Inquires Rawhot Rawns. Well, I ain't no historian, but I happen to savvy this incident. The feller that Christians it ain't like a lot of old timers that consider it an honor to have streams in town named after him. His first name's Pete, and he still lives in Judith, but I ain't gonna go. But I ain't gonna no further except than to say that he's a large, dark-complected feller, and he's mighty friendly with Pat O'Hara and his hangout in this town at Geyser. When I knowed him, he's first a cowpuncher. From looks you'd say he didn't have nothing under his hat but hair, but what he knows about cows is a gift. Right now he's got a nice little bunch raging up the foothills. There's a lot of talk about the way he gets a start. You can believe it or not, suit yourself, but I think it's his winning way among cows. He could come down near talking to a cow out of her calf. Some say they've seen cows following his hoss like a prairie. Following his saddle hoss across the prairie. One old cowman says he's seen that all right, but looking through glasses, there's a rope between the calf and Pete's saddle horn. But going back to the naming of Louse Creek, it's one spring roundup back in the early 80s. We was out in a circle, and me and Pete riding together. Mine's a center fire saddle, and dropped back and straightened the blanket and sat on it. I ain't but a few minutes behind him, but the next I see of Pete is on the bank of the creek, which didn't have no name then. He's off his hoss and he's stripped his shirt off, with one boulder on the ground and another about the same size in his hand, and he's pounding the seams of his shirt. He's so busy he don't hear me when I ride up, and he's cussing and swearing to himself. I hear him mutter, "I'm damned if I don't get some of his big ones." Well, from this day on, the stream was known as Louse Creek. Well, Chris got to get named somehow. Ooh, we get to see some Appalachians now. Bizarre and original names of Appalachia. The qualities of the raw backwoodsman are printed from untouched natives in the names he has left upon the map. His literalness shows in Black Rock, Standing Stone, Sharp Top, 20 Mile, Naked Place, The Pockets, Tumbling Creek, and in the endless designations taken from trees, plants, minerals, or animals noticed on the spot. Incidents of his lonely life are signalized in Dusk Camp Run, Mad Sheep Mountain, Dog Slaughter Creek, Drowning Creek, Burnt Cabin Branch, Broken Leg, Raw Dough, Burnt Pone, Sandy Mush, and 100 others. His contented spirit blazes forth in Fighting Creek, Shooting Creek, Gouge Eye, Vengeance, Four Killer, and Disputanta. A sardonic humor, sometimes smudged with that touch of grossness, is in our English language. Characterizes many of the backwoods place names. In the mountains of Old Virginia, we have dry tripe settlements, the Jerkemtites, and West Virginia are Taken Creek, Get and Run, Seldom Seen Hollow, Odd, Buster Knob, Shabby Room, and Stretch Your Neck. North Carolina has its Shoebird Mountain, Big Bugaboo Creek, Weary Hut, Frog Level, Shake a Rag, and Chunky Gal. In eastern Tennessee are No Time settlements, No Business Knob, with creeks known as Big Soak, Suey, Go Forth, and How Come You. And Georgia has produced Scataway, Tune Eye, Long Nose, Dog Down, Silly Cook, Turkey Trot, Broke Jug Creek, and Tiered Breeches Ridge. Rip, Shin Thicket, Dog Hobble Ridge and Rough Arm, Bear Wallow, Woolly Ridge, Roaring Folk, Huggins Hell, Devil's Race Path, his den, his courthouse, and other playgrounds of Old Nick, they too were well and fitly named. Okay. Texas isn't the only place with weird names. There's a Cinecine chat. Oh, there's a section on Hoosier. I'm going to do one more short section, and we will find somewhere to raid. Circuitous styles of expression. The propensity to approach a meaning not directly and squarely, but by circuitous styles of expression, seems indeed born a quality of the common people everywhere, evidenced by nicknames, and the invertebrate determination of the masses to bestow subtitles, sometimes ridiculous and sometimes very apt. Among the rank and file, both armies, it was very general to speak of the different states they come from in their slang names. Those from Maine were called Foxes, New Hampshire, Granite Boys, Massachusetts, Bay Staters, Vermont, Green Mountain Boys, Rhode Island, Gunflints, Connecticut, Wooden Nutmegs, New York, Knickerbockers, New Jersey, Clamcatchers, Pennsylvania, Loggerheads, Delaware, Muskrats, Maryland, Clawthumpers, Virginia, Beagles, North Carolina, Tarboilers, South Carolina, Weasels, Georgia, Buzzards, Louisiana, Creoles, Alabama, Lizards, Kentucky, Corncrackers, Ohio, Buckeyes, Michigan, Wolverines, Indiana, Hoosiers, Illinois, Suckers, Missouri, Pukes, Mississippi, Tadpoles, Florida, Fly Up the Creeks, Wisconsin, Badgers, Iowa, Hawkeyes, Oregon, Hardcases. That is kind of interesting. But anyway. I see Harp Griffin on. Yeah, that's right, Harp. But anyway, for those who didn't catch it earlier, oh yeah, that's always fun. You know what else is always fun? Reading ghost stories. Good segue. Tomorrow, no stream on my channel because we'll be over on Matthew's. Of course, it didn't fit. I have gotten a few books of ghost stories, including I actually found Andrew Lang's book about ghost stories. So yeah, I haven't decided which ones I'll read yet, but I will try to limit the page number. But for now, we are going to read out. Because I think our Griffin is just getting started right now, so the appropriate time to distract him. So, hopefully, I will see everyone in Matsu's tomorrow. Good night.